It starts with a simple thread, a message that seems harmless, but by the end of it, you'll be questioning everything you thought was real. This is LurmoStories. Don't worry, the night's still young, but your nerves won't be.
Case number 17-4523, Missing Persons, 17th of October, 2019. Detective Eleanor Briggs, case lead. The case had been dormant for over 6 months. The missing child, Dylan Hayes, had disappeared without a trace from his local park, a popular, well-lit space for families to gather on weekends. His mother had been the one to report it, after noticing that he hadn't returned home from his usual after-school playtime. The park was only a block away from their house, so the disappearance was particularly unsettling. There was nowhere for him to have gone. I pulled the case file from the cold storage archive, a reminder that some mysteries remain unsolved, no matter how many resources are spent on them. Dylan had been a quiet, somewhat introverted 10-year-old, and he was rarely out of sight when he was at the park. There were no signs of a struggle, no suspicious vehicles, no witnesses, just the child, gone. His disappearance had left a hole in the community, and as the months passed, the case grew colder. The only clue, if it could even be called that, was a single photograph. Taken just hours before his disappearance, it was found on a park bench near the children's playground, the kind of place where parents usually sit while watching their kids play. The picture showed Dylan seated on the bench, facing the camera. There was no one else around. His eyes were wide open, and the way he looked into the lens gave off a sense of unease. He appeared neither scared nor happy, just aware. The image had been found by a jogger who initially thought the photo had been dropped by a parent, perhaps forgotten in the rush to leave. I studied the photo again. The park's playground was visible in the background, quiet and unremarkable. The timestamp on the photo showed it was taken just after 3:30 p.m., a time when the park should have been bustling with children and parents. But the photo itself, although not blurry, had a strange quality to it. The lighting was off, too dark for the hour of day. It didn't make sense. The park should have been bathed in sunlight, yet the picture made it seem as though the sun was setting early, casting long shadows in all directions. The file had nothing else of note, no other photos, no reports of unusual behavior, no accounts from potential witnesses. Just that photo, which had been analyzed in detail by the original detectives. It was dismissed as nothing more than a poor quality snapshot from a child's camera, probably taken by Dylan himself, though how it ended up on the bench remained a mystery. But as I stared at the image, a creeping sense of wrongness gnawed at the back of my mind. The missing child's eyes, were they pleading for help? Or was there something more in the way he looked directly at the lens? My gut told me this photo was the key. If I could find out more about it, I might uncover something the original investigators had missed. I went to the park to investigate firsthand. It was nearing dusk, the sky streaked with hues of orange and pink. The park, usually lively at this time of day, was nearly empty. Just a few straggling joggers and dog walkers. I walked the same path that Dylan would have taken, and soon found myself standing near the bench where the photo had been taken. The same bench, nearly identical in appearance, sat under the shadow of a large oak tree. It felt wrong. The air was heavy, thick with the kind of quiet you find just before something unsettling happens. There was nothing special about the bench, just a public park fixture, ordinary in every way. But as I stood there, I couldn't shake the sensation that someone was watching me. I looked around, but there was no one in sight. Then I noticed it, something I hadn't seen in the photograph. The ground beneath the bench was disturbed, like someone had recently walked over the area. The soil was softer than it should have been for this time of year. I bent down, brushing aside some fallen leaves. Beneath them, there was a small impression, a shoe print maybe. It was too faint to make out clearly, but it was there. And it wasn't just any print, it looked recent. Could this have been the same spot where Dylan had been? Or was someone else using the bench for a different purpose? I stood up, unsettled by the discovery, and tried to rationalize it. But no matter how I looked at it, it was as if something had shifted in the air. Dylan's disappearance was no longer just a case to be solved. It was a puzzle that was pulling me deeper into something much darker. As I left the park, I couldn't get the image of Dylan's eyes out of my mind. Why had he been alone there? Why had he looked into the camera like that? It wasn't just an innocent picture. There was something wrong with it. I needed to find out who had taken it and why it was left behind. I didn't know it yet, but the answers I was seeking were much closer than I could have ever imagined. Case number 17-4523, Missing Persons, 25th of October, 2019. Detective Eleanor Briggs, case lead. I returned to the park the next day, driven by the eerie sensation that the place was holding something back. I'd gone over the case file again, trying to find a connection between the photograph and the bench where it had been taken, but there were no concrete leads. The bench, however, was becoming an obsession for me. Something about it didn't sit right, almost as if it had been chosen deliberately, not just because it was a convenient resting place. There was a coolness in the air as I walked the path again. The sun had risen higher, casting long shadows that stretched unnaturally along the ground. The park looked just like any other, trees rustling gently in the wind, children playing on swings in the distance, but there was an underlying stillness that made my skin prickle. It was like the park was pretending to be ordinary while hiding something beneath the surface. I decided to ask a few people who frequented the park. One woman walking her dog remembered Dylan vaguely. She said she had seen him playing with a small group of children near the bench the day he disappeared. But that was hours before, maybe around noon, she added. He wasn't anywhere near the bench when I left. I took note of the time, noon. The photograph was taken at 3:30 p.m. It didn't add up. How had Dylan ended up alone on the bench at that time, hours after the woman saw him? I continued to walk, paying closer attention to the area around the bench. The more I observed, the more I noticed odd details. There were subtle changes in the landscape that felt out of place. A patch of grass had been trampled down, leading away from the bench into a grove of thick trees, far enough to be concealed from the main area of the park. The path seemed intentionally hidden, as if someone had made an effort to make it appear untraveled. I followed the trail, heart pounding in my chest. My thoughts were racing. Could Dylan have walked down this path after being alone at the bench? Was this where he had gone? As I reached the edge of the grove, I found myself standing in front of a small, dilapidated shed. It wasn't on any park map. It looked old, abandoned. The wooden door creaked with the wind, and for a moment, I just stood there, staring at it, unsure of what to do next. I approached cautiously, my hand reaching for the handle. The door gave way with a soft push, revealing the dim interior. It smelled like old wood and dust, and the only light came from a crack in the far wall where the sunlight filtered through. Then, I saw it. There was a collection of old items stacked haphazardly in the back of the shed, but what caught my attention wasn't the clutter. It was the unmistakable sight of a child's backpack tucked into the corner. I froze, my mind racing. Was it Dylan's? Had someone taken his things here? I approached the backpack, my breath shallow. I knelt down and reached for the zipper, my fingers trembling. Inside, there was a single item, a stuffed animal, a small bear, its fur matted with dirt. I recognized it immediately. It was Dylan's favorite toy. His mother had described it in the missing persons report, saying he never went anywhere without it. But why was it here? I pulled the bear out of the bag, examining it closely. There was something odd about it. On the back of the bear's head, barely visible in the dim light, was a small tear. But the tear wasn't from wear or rough play. It had been deliberately cut. I stared at it for a long moment, my mind spiraling with questions. Had someone cut the bear open? Why? The unease that had started as a dull suspicion was now growing into something more sinister. I stood up, scanning the shed once more. There was nothing else out of the ordinary, no more clues to be found. The shed itself seemed empty, but the presence of the bear made it feel alive, as if someone had been here recently. I took a step back, but before I could leave, I heard something. A rustling sound, faint but deliberate. I turned to the door, my pulse quickening. I couldn't see anyone, but it felt like I was no longer alone. I forced myself to leave the shed, my hands shaking as I closed the door behind me. As I stepped back into the sunlight, I saw something that made my stomach drop. There was a figure standing near the edge of the grove, watching me. It was a man. He was tall, wearing a dark hoodie that obscured his face. He didn't move, just stood there, frozen, as if waiting for something. I didn't know who he was or what he was doing, but the moment I saw him, I knew that he had something to do with Dylan's disappearance. Case number 17-4523, Missing Persons, 30th of October, 2019. Detective Eleanor Briggs, case lead. I didn't confront the man in the park. I couldn't. My instincts screamed at me to walk away, to retreat and figure out my next move in a safer setting. I stepped back, leaving the grove and its eerie figure behind. But the unease lingered. It followed me home, kept me up at night. I couldn't shake the image of that man standing in the shadows, his face hidden beneath the hoodie. He had to be the key. He was the one who had taken Dylan. But I needed proof. I went back to the station and re-examined every scrap of evidence in the case file. It was time to dig deeper. The strange photo, the abandoned backpack, the odd path leading to the shed. None of it was coincidence. And then I remembered something else. A detail buried in the witness statements that I had missed the first time. A local man, an elderly gardener who worked in the park for decades, had mentioned seeing a dark figure near the bench the afternoon Dylan disappeared. The description was vague, but it fit the man I had seen. Tall, hooded, watching. I needed to find him. I needed to know what he knew. That night, I went through the surveillance footage from the park. It wasn't great quality, but there was one frame that stood out. It showed Dylan sitting on the bench, and behind him, in the shadows of the trees, there was a figure, a man, standing still, just watching. The timestamp was 3:30 p.m., the exact time the photograph had been taken. I zoomed in, trying to make out more details, but the figure was too far in the background. Still, the timing was enough to link him to Dylan's disappearance. Whoever this man was, he had been there. And the photograph, the one Dylan had left behind, was no accident. He had known someone was watching him. I left the station and returned to the park, hoping to pick up a trail before it was too late. The place was just as empty as the previous day, the fading sunlight casting long shadows across the ground. This time, I knew where to go. I walked straight to the bench, and as I approached, I noticed something that made my heart skip a beat. There was another photo on the bench. It was almost identical to the first, but this one had been left intentionally, as if it was meant for me to find. Dylan was in the same position, his face eerily still, eyes locked with the camera. But something was different. There was a figure standing behind him in the shadows, just like in the surveillance footage. The figure was clearer this time. It was the same man I had seen in the grove. My heart pounded as I analyzed the photograph, searching for any sign that might tell me where Dylan had gone or who this man was. There was nothing else, just the shadowy figure, always present, always watching. I looked around, hoping to catch a glimpse of the man, but the park remained eerily quiet. Then I heard it. A voice, low, almost a whisper, came from behind me. "You shouldn't have come back." I spun around, but no one was there. My pulse raced as I looked down at the photograph again, trying to make sense of it all. The answer, I realized, had been in front of me the whole time. Dylan hadn't disappeared on his own. He had been taken, but not in the way I had thought. The man hadn't abducted him in the traditional sense. He had watched, he had waited, and Dylan had known he was there. The park was more than just a place. It was a trap. A place where things, people, memories, moments became lost, forgotten. Dylan had been drawn to the bench, drawn to the place where the man had stood. And now, so was I. I knew that my investigation had reached its end, but I didn't know what I had uncovered. The truth was right in front of me, but I couldn't make sense of it. Was Dylan still here, somewhere in the park? Had he left a trail that only I could see? I stood there for a long time, the shadows lengthening as the last light of the day faded from the sky. And then, just as I was about to leave, I saw something. In the distance, barely visible through the trees, there was movement. A figure, tall, hooded, watching. But this time, I didn't run. This time, I walked toward him, every step heavy with the weight of everything I had uncovered. I'm not someone who easily gets scared. I've lived in this neighborhood for years and have always felt safe, even when the streets are quiet late at night. Last Thursday night, however, something happened that's completely changed how I see the world around me. I had just finished my weekly grocery run. It was about 11:30 p.m., and the parking lot outside the store was practically empty. The usual hum of fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I packed my bags into the trunk of my car, mentally noting I'd need to pick up a few more items next time. I wasn't in a rush. The night felt peaceful. That was until I noticed him. I was halfway to the driver's seat when I spotted him standing across the parking lot near the edge of the streetlights. At first, I thought he was just another late-night shopper, but then I saw that he wasn't carrying any bags. He was just standing there, staring at me. He was wearing a dark jacket, and his hands were buried deep in his pockets. I thought nothing of it at first. Maybe he was waiting for a ride, or perhaps he was someone's relative. Still, there was something odd about the way he was watching me. I could feel his eyes, even from a distance, following every movement. I dismissed it, chalking it up to paranoia. My car was parked at the far end of the lot, near the street, and the glow of the streetlights made the shadows stretch long and strange. I hurried into the car and locked the doors, trying to push any odd feelings to the back of my mind. As I pulled out of the parking lot and made a right turn onto the street, I glanced in my rearview mirror. That's when I saw him again. He was standing at the far edge of the parking lot, still staring, but this time, his position had shifted just enough to suggest that he had moved. It was subtle, but it was enough to make my stomach churn. I couldn't explain why, but it felt like he was watching me. I turned onto the main road that led through my neighborhood, telling myself it was nothing, that I was overthinking things. It wasn't like I hadn't seen odd people around late at night before. But as I passed the familiar streets, I kept glancing at the rearview mirror, feeling that unsettling sense of being watched. I made a left onto my street, the quiet, tree-lined road that led to my house. It was a calm residential area with a few streetlights casting pools of yellow light onto the pavement. I always felt safe here, but tonight, something felt different. I looked again. There he was. I swerved slightly as my heart jumped into my throat. How had he gotten here? He was standing at the end of the block, just beyond the corner of my house, where the street curves out of sight. It was almost as though he had teleported, his dark figure appearing where none had been moments before. I immediately sped up, pulling into my driveway. My hands were shaking as I fumbled with the keys to unlock the door. I didn't even bother to park properly. I just wanted to get inside. I grabbed my bags and ran inside, locking the door behind me. I stood there, breathless, staring out of the window into the quiet street. There was no sign of him now. For the rest of the night, I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just a coincidence, a random encounter with someone who had no ill intent. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every noise outside seemed amplified. I kept hearing footsteps on the sidewalk, but when I peeked out the window, there was never anyone there. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, but deep down, I knew something had happened that I couldn't explain. The next morning, I thought I'd feel better, but I didn't. The nagging feeling lingered, and I couldn't shake the thought of him, the man from the parking lot. Who was he? Why had he been there, watching me? The day passed uneventfully, but I couldn't focus. I kept looking over my shoulder every time I left the house, trying to shake off that sinking feeling in my gut. I told myself I was being irrational. I told myself it was all in my head, but I couldn't forget his eyes, those cold, unblinking eyes staring at me from across the parking lot. I couldn't forget how I'd seen him standing on my street, just beyond my house. And then, that night, it happened again. I went back to the same grocery store. It was late, just like before, and the store was nearly empty. I told myself I was being stupid. But still, as I stepped into the aisles, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I turned the corner to grab some bread, and then, there he was. He was standing by the produce section, watching me, but this time, he wasn't as far away. This time, he was close enough for me to see his face clearly. And that's when I realized something that made the blood drain from my face. He wasn't just following me, he was waiting for me. I froze, my hands still on the carton of eggs I had been about to grab. I don't know how long we stood there, staring at each other. The fluorescent lights buzzed above us, and the air felt thick, like something was pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. His face was pale, almost sickly. His eyes, those wide, unblinking eyes, were locked on mine. His lips barely moved as he whispered something under his breath, too quiet for me to hear. It was like the sound of wind rustling in dry leaves. For a moment, time seemed to stretch. I couldn't move. My legs were stiff, and my body felt heavy, like I was stuck in some kind of nightmare. I wanted to turn and run, but my feet wouldn't obey. He didn't approach. He didn't even move a muscle. He just watched. Finally, I found my voice. "What do you want?" I managed to croak, my throat dry. His head tilted ever so slightly to the side, and his eyes didn't leave mine. "You shouldn't have gone home that night." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. How did he know? How could he possibly know? Before I could respond, the store manager appeared, walking down the aisle toward us. The man didn't flinch or turn to acknowledge him. Instead, he just took a step back into the shadows, disappearing behind a display of canned goods. It was like he melted into the darkness. The manager walked right past me without even noticing. I glanced over at him, but the man was gone. I quickly grabbed the bread, not daring to look back, and made my way to the self-checkout. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely scan the items. When I finished, I rushed out of the store, barely glancing around. The parking lot was empty, just as it had been the night before. I got into my car and locked the doors, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't look in the rearview mirror this time. I couldn't. But as I drove home, I couldn't stop thinking about what he had said. "You shouldn't have gone home that night." What did he mean by that? Was this some kind of twisted game he was playing? Or was there something more to it? I turned onto my street, and just as I did, I saw him. Again. He was standing at the same spot on the corner, just like the night before. His posture was rigid, his head angled in that eerie way, and his eyes were locked on me. I couldn't even slow down. My foot slammed the gas pedal, and I sped up the driveway, nearly running over the curb. I didn't care. I burst through the front door, slamming it shut behind me, and bolted the lock. I stood there for a moment, catching my breath, trying to steady myself, but I could still feel his eyes on me, even inside the house. I went to my window and pulled back the curtains just a little. I had to know if he was still there. My heart was in my throat as I peered through the crack, and there, standing perfectly still at the end of the block, was the man. His eyes were fixed on me, unblinking. That's when I noticed something different. A car had pulled up next to him. It was an old sedan, rusted and covered in grime. I didn't recognize it. The headlights were off and the engine was silent. The car was parked right beside the sidewalk, as if it had been waiting for him. I could just barely make out the silhouette of the driver through the tinted windows, but it was enough to make the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I watched, frozen, as the man didn't move. He stayed there, staring at me, while the car remained perfectly still. It was almost as if he was waiting for something, waiting for me to do something. I don't know how long I stood there, just watching him. It could have been seconds, it could have been minutes. It felt like an eternity. Then, out of nowhere, he turned and walked down the sidewalk, his head still tilted in that unnerving way, as if he was looking at something only he could see. The car followed him, slowly, its headlights coming on just as he stepped off the curb and onto the road. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran to my phone and called the police, trying to explain everything, though I'm sure I sounded like I was losing my mind. I told them about the man who had been following me, the strange encounter at the store, in the car. They told me they'd send someone out to check it out, but that I should try to stay calm. I didn't stay calm. I stayed at the window, my eyes glued to the street. I watched as the man walked further down the road, the car still tailing him. The headlights illuminated the street, casting long shadows. It felt like a movie, like I was watching something I wasn't supposed to see. But then, as I watched, something strange happened. The man stopped. Just stopped in the middle of the road. The car pulled up behind him, its engine idling, the headlights glaring. The figure of the driver remained hidden in the shadows, but I could see the car door open. And then the man did something that made my blood run cold. He turned toward the car. But this time, instead of the usual unsettling tilt of his head, he tilted it forward, unnaturally so. And then he slowly crouched down, like he was bending at the waist. Then, with his eyes still locked on me, he started to crawl toward the car on all fours. I stumbled back from the window, my mind racing. What the hell was happening? Why was he moving like that? What was he doing? And then it hit me. The car wasn't there for him. The car was waiting for me. I stood there, rooted to the spot, my breath coming in sharp, shallow gasps. My mind was racing, but I couldn't process it. The man had stopped crawling, now just kneeling in the middle of the street, still staring at me through my window with those eerie, wide eyes. It was like he knew I was watching, like he was waiting for me to make the next move. I backed away from the window, instinctively reaching for my phone again. My hands were shaking so much that I almost dropped it. I dialed 911, but when the operator answered, my voice felt strange, distant. I could barely form the words to explain what was happening. The man from the store, he's outside. There's a car, and he's waiting for me, I stammered. The operator told me to stay inside, not to open the door, and that help was on the way. But I couldn't just sit there, waiting for the police to arrive. Every part of me screamed that I needed to do something. But what? I wasn't equipped to handle whatever this was. My mind kept flashing to the man's words at the store. You shouldn't have gone home that night. What did he mean by that? And why the hell was he still following me? I couldn't just watch. I had to find out what was going on. I crept closer to the window again, my heart pounding in my chest. The street was still eerily quiet. The man hadn't moved, and the car was still idling behind him. But now, I noticed something else. The headlights of the car weren't shining directly on the man. Instead, they were shining at an odd angle, illuminating the sidewalk a few feet from where the man had stopped. The car wasn't just waiting. It was positioned in a way that made it clear it was waiting for someone else. Someone who wasn't there. I shook my head, trying to make sense of it. Was the car waiting for me to come outside? Was the man part of something bigger, something I didn't understand? A sudden sound broke my thoughts, a door slamming. I whipped my head toward the sound, half expecting to see the man standing at my front door, but instead, I saw something worse. The car. The car was gone. There was no screech of tires, no engine revving. It was like it had simply disappeared. I blinked, my heart hammering in my chest. How had it gone so fast? Where had it gone? Had it been there at all? Or had I imagined it? I rushed back to the window, my mind racing, desperately trying to find something, anything that made sense. That's when I saw it. At the edge of my driveway, tucked between two bushes, was something I hadn't noticed before. A small, black object. It was almost too small to see clearly from the window, but my gut told me it wasn't a coincidence. My heart skipped a beat. I knew what it was. A cell phone. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my coat, and despite everything telling me not to, I opened the front door and stepped outside. The cool air hit my face, but it didn't calm me. If anything, it made the hairs on my neck stand up even more. My footsteps were soft, almost as though I was trying not to make any noise, as I approached the phone lying in the shadows of the bushes. I hesitated, looking around, wondering if someone would jump out at me from behind the trees. But the street was silent. Too silent. I knelt down and picked up the phone, noticing immediately that it was old, cracked, and worn. It wasn't a brand new smartphone. It looked like it had been used for years. I pressed the power button and waited as the screen flickered to life. The phone wasn't locked. I scrolled through the apps, but there was nothing of interest, just the usual messages, photos, and a few random contacts. But it wasn't until I looked at the very last thing that had been opened on the phone that my blood ran cold. It was a note, written in what seemed to be a rushed, jagged hand. "You should have listened." My stomach dropped. The same words he had spoken to me at the store. Before I could think, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind me. Loud, deliberate steps. I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. The man was standing in the middle of my yard, still staring at me with those hollow, cold eyes. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run inside and lock the door, but my body wouldn't move. My legs felt like lead, as though they were frozen in place. His voice was low, barely above a whisper, but I heard it clear as day. "I told you. You shouldn't have gone home." I stumbled back, tripping over my feet as panic surged through me. My hands gripped the phone, but I couldn't hold on to it. My fingers were slipping, numb with fear. And then, the worst part, I realized, with sickening clarity, that he wasn't alone. Behind him, half hidden in the dark, I saw another figure. This one, much taller, its silhouette twisted and distorted, as if it didn't belong in this world. It was standing in the shadows, its eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I bolted for the door, the cold night air stinging my face as I ran, my breath coming in frantic bursts. The door slammed shut behind me, and I locked it in a blur. I could hear the faint sound of footsteps outside, but I didn't dare look. Not again. The last thing I saw before closing the blinds was the man's figure, standing on my front lawn, watching me. His eyes never left mine, even as the distorted figure behind him slowly melted into the darkness. That night, the police came. They found nothing. No car, no man, and no phone. But as I lay in bed, my mind still spinning, I could still feel his eyes on me, like he was waiting for something. I knew one thing for sure. Whatever it was, it hadn't ended. It was just beginning. I never thought anything of it when I first got the letter. It came in the mail, nothing unusual about the envelope, just a plain, white one, addressed in a neat, blocky handwriting. The kind of writing you would expect from someone who wanted to avoid being identified. The first time I saw it, I was coming back from work. I thought it was a bill, or maybe some junk mail I'd just toss. I opened it while sitting on the couch, idly flipping through a magazine. It read, "I know your name, I know where you live, and I'll be seeing you soon." There was no return address, no other explanation, just those words. My first instinct was to throw it away and forget about it. People send weird, unsettling letters sometimes, right? Maybe it was a prank or some misguided attempt at humor. But the thing that stuck with me wasn't the words themselves, no. It was the fact that the handwriting looked so familiar. It was something I'd seen before, but where? I sat there for a while, staring at the letter, turning it over in my hands. My mind was racing. Maybe it was a prank, sure, or maybe someone I knew was trying to mess with me. That's what I thought. I started to feel uneasy, but I told myself it was nothing. Still, something didn't feel right. I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, I kept checking the windows of my apartment, half expecting someone to be standing outside, watching me. But there was nothing. No movement, no shadowy figures, nothing. I laughed at myself for even considering it, but the feeling lingered in my chest. I shook it off, reminding myself that I'd probably just had a stressful day at work. People send weird stuff all the time. This was probably just some messed up joke. I went to bed, trying to get some sleep, but the sensation of being watched never left. The next day, I woke up and went to work, trying to push the incident to the back of my mind. But when I came home that night, there was another envelope waiting for me on my doorstep. It was exactly like the first one, just plain white, with that same blocky handwriting on it. I hesitated for a second, staring at the envelope, but then I reached down and picked it up. The letter inside was identical to the first one. I know your name, I know where you live, and I'll be seeing you soon. My blood ran cold. How was this possible? Who was doing this? And how did they know where I lived? I tried to make sense of it. I couldn't. I racked my brain, thinking about anyone who could have sent this, but I came up empty. I hadn't told anyone my address recently, and I hadn't met anyone new. No one had any reason to know anything about me, let alone send me creepy letters. I considered calling the police, but what would I even say? That someone was sending me cryptic letters with no return address? They'd probably just think I was overreacting. Still, the idea that someone out there knew my name and my address was starting to gnaw at me. It felt wrong.
The more I thought about it, the more I felt like I was being drawn into something I didn't understand. The third night after receiving the letters, I decided to stay awake a little longer. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was out there, watching. I made sure all the windows were locked and double-checked the door, even though I knew no one had come in. Around midnight, there was a knock at my door. My heart skipped a beat. I froze, staring at the door, my mind racing. Who would be knocking at my door at this hour? I wasn't expecting anyone. Slowly, I stood up and walked toward the door, my footsteps soft on the wooden floor. I looked through the peephole. Nothing. I opened the door, just a crack, and peered outside. The hallway was empty, just like it always was at this hour. No one was there. But when I turned back into my apartment, I saw something that made my blood run cold. There on the kitchen counter was a fourth envelope. It wasn't there before. I knew it wasn't. The letter inside was different. Instead of the usual message, this one simply read, "You should have answered the door." I felt my stomach drop. How? How did they know I was at the door? How did they know I hadn't answered it? I slammed the door shut, locking it again. My mind was spiraling. I couldn't understand what was happening, but I knew this wasn't a joke anymore. I grabbed my phone to call someone, anyone, but my hands were shaking too much to dial. I felt like I was trapped, like there was nowhere to go. Someone out there knew me, knew my name, knew where I lived, and they were toying with me. I don't know what I'm supposed to do next, but I'm terrified. I don't know who's behind this or why they're doing it, but I'm starting to feel like I'm running out of time. It's been 3 days since the last letter, and things have only gotten worse. I've tried to ignore it, tried to convince myself that it's all just a coincidence, but deep down, I know it's not. I know something is wrong. I know that someone is out there, watching me. The letters keep coming, every single night, without fail. The handwriting is always the same, blocky, neat, almost too perfect. It's the only thing that feels like a connection between them. The first 2 letters were unsettling enough, but then the third one, that was when I started to lose my grip on reality. You should have answered the door. I can't stop thinking about those words. How did they know I didn't answer? I've spent hours staring at the door, wondering if someone was standing there, just waiting for me to open it. But when I checked, no one was ever there. The hallways are empty. I started checking the security cameras around the apartment building, but nothing. The footage is grainy and inconclusive. Whoever is doing this knows how to avoid being seen. I haven't told anyone about this yet. I can't. They'd think I'm crazy.
I've been trying to act normal, trying to get on with my life, but every time I hear a sound at night or see a shadow pass under my door, my heart races. I know they're still out there, watching me. Last night, I finally snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. I went to the building's security office and asked to see the footage from the last few days. The guard was an older man who didn't seem too concerned. He tried to reassure me, told me I was probably just being paranoid. I told him I wasn't, that I needed to see it, that someone was sending me letters and I was being followed. He hesitated for a moment, but eventually he let me watch the footage. We went through the tapes from the last few nights, but there was nothing. No one in the hallways, no strange figures, no one near my door. I felt my stomach sink. How could that be? I know someone has been here. I've seen the letters, the evidence. But there was nothing on the cameras. Then, just as I was about to give up, the guard paused the video. He looked at me with a confused expression. I leaned forward, trying to make out what he was seeing. There, on the tape from 2 nights ago, in the corner of the hallway, there was a figure. Just a silhouette, standing perfectly still. I froze. My mind raced. The guard rewound the footage and played it again.
The figure hadn't moved. It was just standing there. But the more I stared at it, the more I realized something. It was me. Not the me I am now, but the me from a few days ago. The same clothes, the same posture, but it was wrong. The figure was slightly off, like a shadow version of myself, a reflection that wasn't quite right. I almost couldn't breathe. I don't know how it's possible. I've never seen anyone like that before. And the worst part? That figure had been there the whole time, standing at the edge of the hallway, watching me through the camera. But somehow, I never noticed it. I left the security office in a daze, my mind racing with questions I couldn't answer. How could someone be in the hallway without me seeing them? How did they get that footage? And why was there a copy of me standing there? I don't know what to do. I don't know if I'm losing my mind or if this is something far worse than I can comprehend. But one thing is clear. Whoever is sending me these letters, whoever is watching me, they know more than they should. The next day, I went through the mail. I almost didn't want to look. I was terrified that there would be another letter waiting for me. But when I opened the mailbox, I saw nothing. No envelopes, no cryptic messages, nothing. For a moment, I thought I was imagining it all, that maybe, just maybe, it had all been some weird, sick prank. But then I saw something small and white sticking out from between a stack of bills. It was a letter. I pulled it out slowly, my hands trembling. This one was different.
The handwriting was more hurried, as if written in a rush. I see you. That's all it said. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm scared. I don't know if I'm being stalked or if I'm just losing my grip on reality. Every time I hear a noise, every time I pass a mirror, I'm terrified I'll see that same figure again. The one that looked like me, but wasn't. I'm scared I'm being driven mad, but I can't shake the feeling that whoever is doing this knows more than they're letting on. They're always one step ahead of me, always watching, always waiting. And I can't help but wonder, are they ever going to stop? I couldn't sleep last night, not at all. I've been pacing around my apartment, checking every window, every door, even the smallest of cracks in the walls. I'm certain now, there's someone in this building with me, someone who knows everything about me. I've become a prisoner in my own home. I don't know who they are or what they want, but I feel it in my bones. It's only a matter of time before they make their move. I had to leave the apartment today. I couldn't stay inside anymore. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. I grabbed my jacket and went out for a walk, trying to clear my head, to pretend everything was fine. But the moment I stepped outside, I felt it. The same sensation that had been haunting me for days now. The feeling that someone was watching me, following me. At first, I thought I was just being paranoid. I told myself that I was overthinking everything. But the more I walked, the more I couldn't shake the feeling. I looked over my shoulder, half expecting to see a shadow following me, but there was nothing, just empty streets. But then I saw something. A person standing at the end of the block, just standing there, staring at me. I couldn't make out their face, just the outline of a figure in the distance. My heart raced, and I felt a cold sweat break out on the back of my neck. I turned to walk faster, but when I glanced over my shoulder again, the figure was closer. I started running. I didn't know where I was going. I just ran, trying to put distance between myself and whatever or whoever that was. I could hear footsteps behind me, quick and steady, like they were right on my heels. I turned the corner and ducked into an alley, hoping to lose them. I took a few deep breaths, trying to steady my frantic pulse. When I dared to look around, the figure was gone. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I was being followed by some stranger or if this was all in my head. Was it possible that I was losing my mind? I almost convinced myself that it was nothing, that it was just my paranoia getting the best of me. But then I remembered the letter I'd received this morning. I see you. Those words kept repeating in my head, louder with each passing second. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare, unable to wake up. I didn't feel safe anywhere. Even when I tried to call a friend, I couldn't bring myself to explain what was happening. Who would believe me? What if I really was just imagining everything? When I got back to my apartment, I was too afraid to go inside. I sat down on the steps outside my building, trying to calm myself. I had to make a decision. I had to figure out what to do. That's when I saw it. The envelope. It was sitting on the doorstep, just like all the others. I don't know how I missed it earlier, but there it was. I stood there, staring at it for a long time. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking, but I reached down and picked it up. The handwriting was the same as before. Blocky, neat, familiar.
I opened it slowly, my stomach turning. You didn't answer the door before, but now I'm here. I could feel the weight of those words pressing on my chest, suffocating me. I looked up. The hallway to my apartment was silent, empty. But something was different now. I wasn't just scared of the unknown anymore. I was terrified of the certainty that someone who knew everything about me, was in this building right now. I turned back to the envelope, my hands trembling. There was another slip of paper inside. I know what you're afraid of, and I know where you go when you sleep. I dropped the letter, my heart racing in my chest. What did it mean? How did they know what I was dreaming about? I hadn't told anyone anything. I heard something, a faint rustle behind me.
I turned, my breath catching in my throat. No one was there. But as I turned back to the letter, I saw something else. The words on the page had changed. The ink was smudging, twisting into shapes that didn't make sense. I looked up again. In the shadows of the hallway, I saw a figure. Just a silhouette, standing motionless at the end of the corridor. I couldn't breathe. I should have run. I should have screamed. But I couldn't move. My legs felt frozen, like I was trapped in place. I could feel my pulse hammering in my ears. The figure stepped forward, and the hallway lights flickered. And then, I heard something. A voice, soft, like a whisper, but clear as day. You know me. It was my own voice, but it wasn't me. It couldn't be. I turned to run, but when I reached the door to my apartment, I froze. The door was already open. I had locked it earlier. And then, I saw something that made my stomach turn. On the inside of the door, scrawled in dark, jagged letters, was one final message. You can't escape me. I stumbled backward, my heart racing, my mind a blur. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. And then, I heard the footsteps behind me. Slowly, deliberately. I knew it was too late to run. Whoever this was, whoever had been sending me those letters, was already inside. And they were waiting.
You thought it was over, but you've only heard a handful of the stories out there. The internet is full of whispers, and we're here to bring them to light. Thanks for tuning into LurmoStories. Keep your lights low, we'll have more soon.